Okay, so we're going to move on to step 2 or part 2 of 7.4 in IED class, which is assembly. So today we're going to assemble the toy train. Now, I already have all of the toy train files saved on my flash drive, so these should be accessed very easily. Now remember, you want to, first of all, save your assembly as something before you get started. So I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to save this as Train Assembly. Now remember to have all of the parts downloaded and saved in your user drive before you start any assembly, because you have to have all the parts in order to place them into the assembly. So I'm going to go to Place, and we're always going to start with the base part. So the base part of the train is, of course, the train body. So I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to bring that in. Now, the train body, I only need one of those. So I'm going to start there, and I'm going to ground the train body. Now, eventually, we're going to animate it, and so we're going to unground it here after a while. But for our basic assembly, we're going to leave it grounded. And so really, now it's up to you what other pieces you want to bring in. And for me, I'm going to bring in a few different pieces in order to kind of feel out and have a selection of what I want. So I'm going to go back to Place, and the cool thing is that you can highlight multiple parts all at once, and it'll bring them in together. So let's bring in the cow catcher, the stack, and I'm holding the control key to highlight different things at the same time. So we'll start out with those for right now, because the other ones we're going to need multiple parts of, and we'll show you how to do that in a minute. So let's bring in the stack and the cow catcher. So I'm going to hit escape because I only need one of each, and separate them out. So there's the stack and there's the cow catcher. Now I can start going with my constraints. So I have a lot to choose from, and you can certainly use mate and flush like we've shown you in the past, but a new constraint that you can use, and I'm going to use it for this one, is insert. And what insert does is insert puts basically two circles together. So I'm going to start out with an opposed insert to put on the stack. So I'm going to select my stack. I want to make sure I get the axis as evidenced by the dotted line. And then I want to make sure that I get the axis of the hole where it goes in the train. So I'm going to hit that. And I'm going to select OK. Now, if I've done this correctly, this will not move at all. So I'm trying to click on it and drag it around, and it hasn't moved yet. So that's great news. Now, the cow catcher is a little bit different, because if you notice, if I zoom in, there are 3 spots right here in the front of the train, and there are 3 pegs where the cow catcher goes. So since there's 3 spots, I don't think I can really use insert. So I'm going to drag this around so I can see it better with free rotate. And this time I'm going to use a mate constraint. So I want the center of the top peg and the center of the top hole. So if I drag over it, it says center point. Okay. And I hit apply, and you'll notice that it kind of spins around on the axis. And that did something that I did not want it to do. So I'm going to hit cancel. and kind of move this into position a little bit, but still be able to see a couple other pegs. So if I zoom in here to the train, and the zoom tool really becomes one of your best excuse me, it becomes one of your best friends when you're doing this. So let's grab the mate tool again, and I'll do the center point of that to the center point of that, and I'll hit OK. All right, so it says the assembly cannot be solved. That's no problem. So we'll try something else. A lot of this is going to be trial and error. So let's get this kind of into position here. And let's go to the underside. And let's use a flush constraint. And we'll flush the two undersides, the underside of the train and the underside of the cow catcher together. Okay, doesn't like that either. So really the cow catcher is probably one of the toughest parts to do. So we'll try one more thing here. So we'll try to mate, and we'll go mate to the front faces, and that looks like it'll go. And so we'll do that. Now you notice that the cow catcher kind of rotates around, and that's really okay. That's the best that I have found the cow catcher to be assembled. Now, I mentioned earlier that we are going to be using multiple parts of some other things. For example, we're going to be using multiple parts of the train wheels, multiple parts of the train axles, and multiple parts of the linkage pegs. So, and the linkage arms actually. So let's bring in some wheels. So I'm going to go to place, and I'm going to find my train wheel and hit open. And obviously, you know, train has 4 wheels. So all I have to do is click 4 times when I bring it in, and then hit escape. And I automatically have 4 wheels. Okay, now the wheels are a little bit tricky, but we'll show you how to do those. Okay, so let's get into a good position of the view here with the wheel. And let's try to use an insert constraint again, since we have 2 circles. So I want that axis, and I want this axis also of the wheel. All right, now, one thing that you will notice, okay, is that the wheel spins, but we have a problem. It is on backwards. So I wanted to show you that just to avoid a mistake. So we don't want it backwards. So what we can do is we can do this, and we can select the aligned insert instead, okay? And then we'll hit OK. And notice that the wheel is a little bit too far inward. So we can come back out here, and we can do an offset of the insert to bring it out just slightly. So let's try 0.2. And then that brings it out where we want it to go. Now you notice that your wheels here need to have it be rotating, okay? Because that's going to help us out with our animation a little bit later. So let's go ahead and do the other wheels as well with our insert and aligned constraint. So I'm going to be here and there. Again, it's a little bit further in, so I'm going to offset 0.2, and that brings it out far enough. So I hit OK, and I can apply that. All right, so now let's move around to the back side. And again, we're just trying to keep everything kind of together and on screen here. And we'll show you the other wheels and the rest of the train in part 2.